Hola, ¿cómo están? This is your video breakdown lecture for Grammar 2-1, the present tense of AR verbs and the verb GUSTAR. Let's jump into it. I'm going to share screen and we'll get started. Note that this video breakdown is going to be helpful for grammar quiz 2-1. So it's really important to watch it all the way through. Also, some of the culture that we're going to do today is going to be on your Chapter 2 exam. So let's watch it with the intention of learning what we need to know for Chapter 2 exam little by little. So we're ready by the time we get to that point. All right, these are our topics for today. We're going to get started with the first topic, which is Spain. And today we are going to be talking about one of the languages spoken in Spain. If you remember from the last video breakdown that we did, Spanish isn't the only language that's spoken in Spain. One of the languages that we talked about was Euskera or Basque, and we're going to learn a little bit about that today. This is what's in your ebook, and it highlights the various languages that are spoken in Spain, and this is a map that I put in that shows where those languages are spoken in Spain. Again, we're focusing on Euskera, also known as Basque. All right, so here's a little bit about this language. It's really, really interesting. It's spoken in the northern part of Spain and the southern part of France. This is interesting. It's an isolated language. It has no known relatives. It is not related to Spanish, French, or Latin, or any other European language. It's really interesting. Linguists still debate its origins today, and it is one of the biggest mysteries in language history. It predates the Romance languages spoken before Latin arrived with the arrival of the Romans. And even though we know that Spanish and French grew out of Latin, Euskara remains entirely distinct. It's just a very distinct language. You'll hear it in just a moment. You're going to hear that some of the sounds actually remind you of some Asian dialects. Some of the phrases remind you a little bit of some of the Latin languages, but it's just a complete different language, okay? There's some information here about where some of the Spanish surnames come from, and you can read that in your own time and press pause. For time's sakes, we're going to move on. We're going to listen to someone speak in Basque. I want you to see if you can recognize anything that this person is saying. After we listen to the language, we're going to actually learn and do a little mini Basque lesson. So let's move into listening. This is John, and he is speaking Basque for us today. And I'm just going to check and make sure I'm sharing my sound, which I believe I am. All right, we're gonna go move on with it then. All right, let me just change my pen. All right, and go back. I don't think that's too loud. Let me turn my sound up a little bit. I'm not sure what you're hearing on your end, and let's try again.
Opa, egunon, izan joan behar da, hogeita zortzi urte ditut, eskolaretik nago, nator, eta, bueno, herria getxo deitzen da, Bizkaiko kostaldea. Ni urkera etorri nintzen orain dela, bi urte, hasieran oso zaila da, eta, bueno, lehenengo hilabetea oso zaila izan zen, ez nuen inor ere ez ezagutzen kontinente osoan, ez estatu batuetan, Amerika osoan. Eta, bueno, poliki, eta estilo, pues, aurrera edoten zara, kultura diferenteak eta ezberdinak ezagutzen dozuz, jendea eta giroa ezagutzen dozu, gero ingelesa ere, hobetu genuen, eta, bueno, hilabete batzun ostean, berriro.
And that's just a little bit so that you guys at home can hear what Basque language sounds like. All right, now this is spoken in Spain. I did hear a few Spanish phrases. I don't know if he's doing what we do with Spanish sometimes with speaking Spanglish. was mixing a little bit of Spanish with Basque, but for the most part, I could not follow along and understand what he was talking about. I don't know how you did at home, but I think it's extremely interesting. Let's do a little lesson now. We're going to listen to someone from the Basque Country. And I actually need to point something out to you. If you notice, the flag behind him is the flag that represents Basque Country. This is a flag that is flown inside of Spain that represents this particular culture inside of Spain. And you see this young lady has a pen with that same flag. All right, let's hear what she is teaching us.
Welcome to the Hello Basque YouTube channel, where every week we're talking all about the Basque Country and Basque people. If you clicked on this video, I take it you have an interest in the Basque Country. This video is all about useful Basque phrases when visiting the Basque Country. So maybe you're planning a trip to the Basque Country. Maybe you're just curious to learn about the Basque language, how it's pronounced. Either way, it's just important to know that, one, the Basque Country has its own language, Euskera, also known as Basque in English. And if you want to be a really cool, hip, respectful traveler when visiting the Basque Country, you might like to know a few words in Basque so you can try them out and totally dazzle all of the locals with like how cool and hip you are and supportive of the Basque cause. Is that a stretch? Maybe. No matter what, it's always nice to know a little bit of the language of the country you're visiting and try to bust it out. That's kind of part of the fun of traveling. Something you need to know is that the Basque language, Euskera, is not related to French or Spanish linguistically, so the phrases and the words that we're going to go through might be quite unfamiliar to you. So let's start off with just some useful greetings. How do you say hello? A really common cutesy way of saying hello in the Basque Country these days is kaixo. Kaixo.
Kaixo. Maybe you can take time and try to say that yourself at home.
Simple, right? Kaixo, you can just walk into a bar,
Kaixo.
restaurant, shop, and greet anybody you encounter with a friendly kaixo. If you want to get a little more particular into the times of day, here we go. If you want to say good morning or good day, that's egunon.
Egunon.
Egunon. 2 words, egunon. Good day or good morning. If you want to say good afternoon, here we're getting into a little more complicated territory. Arachaldeon. Arachaldeon.
Arachaldeon. Maybe you can try it at home. Arachaldeon. And there are some more complicated phrases. I'm going to stop here for today, but I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the language spoken in the northern part of Spain, which is Basque language, or the Basque. Now we're going to go into the present tense of AR verbs. We're getting out of the culture of Spain, going into the grammar that you'll use. Maybe not in the Basque Country part of Spain, but in the central part of Spain where Spanish is spoken. All right, so let's review AR verbs and the verb gustar. You guys have already seen a video breakdown on this topic. Today I'm going to be going very fast through it, okay? These are the things that you've already seen that you need to know about AR verbs, starting with what is an infinitive. It is the most basic form of the verb. In Spanish, it will always end in AR, ER, or IR. And in English, when we translate that infinitive Spanish verb, it will always mean to do an action, to run, to eat, to walk, whatever it is. Here are some examples of AR, ER, and IR verbs that are in the what? Infinitive. We know it because they end in AR, ER, and IR. All right. So make sure, I want to pause for a minute and make sure you guys are really absorbing this. I don't want, a lot of times students in their academic journey say like, I'm not sure what I need to know. This is a great way for me to communicate to you exactly what you need to know, these 6 things. So know what an infinitive is, know what conjugation, the concept of conjugation is, and what does it mean to conjugate a verb. You should be able to rattle that answer right back off, and the answer is to change a verb ending to show or support or help support who is doing the action, okay? Like I said, I'm moving fast. If you need to see more details, please see the first video breakdown lesson in Moodle and Moodle Module 2-1. Now, how to conjugate. Hope you can rattle off the answer to that at home. You're going to, one, remove the AR ending, and two, add the appropriate ending, okay? What are AR endings? This you must memorize. You really have to know. Oh, as, almost, on. It's extremely important. These are the endings, a visual of those endings. This is a chart that you've already seen that shows the endings and what the endings indicate. As in, the O means I'm doing the action, as means you familiar doing the action, etc., etc. I would say for this lecture today, take a picture of this if you don't already have a picture of it, because it's going to help you get through the practice activities, okay? You need to practice, that leads us to the next topic, you need to practice conjugating all of your verbs, okay? So you're going to use this, and then you're going to look at this and make sure that you can conjugate these verbs using these endings. And you're going to do that through either, one, speaking it out loud. So for example, just saying, let me grab my pen. Just saying out loud, can I conjugate bailar in all of the forms? Bailo, bailas, baila, bailamos, bailan. Buscar, busco, buscas, busca, buscamos, buscan. Da 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 da, etc. You don't have to do it with all of the verbs, but just see if you can do 5. And I would say choose the 5 that are hardest for you to remember, okay? Not only conjugate them, but know what they mean. Bailo, I dance. Bailas, you informal dance, etc., etc. So this, if you still don't know what conjugation is, this is a quick walkthrough. Here you have the verb trabajar, which is an infinitive, which we know because it has the AR ending. It means to work. We are going to take that AR off, and we are going to substitute in our endings for AR verbs in the present tense, which are o, as, a, almost, an. This is what the conjugated forms of the verb mean. Pause if you need more time, okay? Again, make sure you have this chart and make sure you know the definitions of all of these verbs. You have to know that, okay? All right, that's a review of AR verbs. Let's go into review of the verb gustar before we go into preparation for quiz 2-1. These are the elements that you're going to use to conjugate the verb gustar. Please remember that instead of saying like yo in the beginning of a sentence, or using, let's say that another way, instead of using yo as the subject or tú, which are our subject pronouns that we learned in chapter 1, we are going to use the indirect object pronouns, okay? Me, te, le, nos, les. You need to memorize those. Instead of using o, as, a, amos, an, we're going to use 2 forms of gustar, gusta y gustan, okay? When we use gustar, there is a 2-step process. We are going to split these 2 elements in half. We will choose which indirect object pronoun to use based on who the subject of the sentence is. And we will choose whether to use gusta or gustan based on the quantity of the thing that we like. Okay, let's jump into that a little bit more, starting with our indirect object pronouns. And it aligns with those subject pronouns that we kept having to use in chapter 1. If the subject is yo, we're using me. The subject is tu, we're using te, etc., etc. Pause here if you need more time. Reminder, this is just a review, not a full lesson. Now, when do we use gustar or gustan? That depends on the quantity of the things that we like. So if I like a class, singular, I use gusta. If I like classes, I use gustan. If I like to do an activity or an action like I like to talk, then we're going to use the short form, gusta. Alrighty, let's move on. If you want some practice, you can look at this chart and see if it makes sense to you. This chart has already been shown. This is just a review. We have gone through Spain. We have gone through AR verbs and the verb gustar. Let's get into a little practice for the quiz, okay? All right, so practice for the quiz, exercise 1 of 3, all right? Instructions you may want to get familiar with. This reads, are the sentences logical or illogical? Make a decision based on grammar and logic, or in other words, are the sentences correct or not? Here are your instructions. Here's an example. A sentence, yo canto en la biblioteca, which translates to I sing in the library. All right. Well, how you should think through this is the given sentence correct based on grammar and logic? And when it comes to logic, guys, anything is possible, right? Technically, someone could sing in the library, but we want to say, is it logical based on normal everyday activities? And we all know that you're not supposed to sing and dance in the library. It's a place to be quiet at. All right. So, yo canto en la biblioteca. Is this a logical, rational sentence? Okay, no, it's not logical to sing in the library. So, this would be marked as incorrect. Nosotros canto en la clase de música. Now, while the last sentence was incorrect based on logic, let's look at this sentence grammatically. The subject is nosotros, which means we, and the verb given here is canto in the yo form. We're going to ask ourselves, is the given sentence correct based on grammar and logic? Well, logically, yes, someone may sing in a music class, but grammatically, it's not correct because the subject and verb do not agree. The grammar is incorrect. A correction here would be nosotros cantamos en la clase de música. Taking the nosotros form because nosotros is the is the subject. All right, it's your turn to practice. Here is number 1. Ellos toman una clase de historia y una clase de inglés. Pause here if you need more time to decide if this is correct or incorrect. The answer is no, it is not correct. Why not? Because the subject and verb do not agree. Ellos is the subject, therefore the ellos form of the verb, look at that chart that I asked you to take a picture of, which would be toman, would be the correct verb to use. All right, number 2, we have 4 we're going to do. Ricardo y yo terminamos la composición a las 3 de la tarde. Ricardo and I, we finished the composition at 3 in the afternoon. Is the grammar logical? Is the logic logical? Is the sentence logical? Okay, yes, the grammar and logic is correct. Ricardo y yo insinuates we, something that we are doing, we, the subject, and then we have the we or the nosotros form of the verb here. Okay, terminamos. All right, number 3. Ustedes estudiamos en la biblioteca a las 2:30 de la tarde. You guys, well, I'm not going to translate it. You take a moment and see if it makes sense to you. And the answer would be no, that doesn't make sense. The grammar doesn't make sense. Ustedes calls for us to use the an ending, which means this verb, the correct form, given the subject, would be estudian. And finally, number 4, tú, subject, escuchas, verb, al profesor en la cafetería, details. You listen to the professor in the cafeteria. Again, we're going to pause, decide if it's correct or not. And no, it is not correct because it reads, you listen to the professor in the cafeteria. Do we listen to our professor lectures in the cafeteria? No, most logically, we would be in a classroom for that. All right, that's it for exercise number 1. Let's skip over to exercise number 2. The instructions read, in this one, you will select the most logical verb or activity and the most logical time for the activity given using the clues in each sentence. So, here, example, here's a sentence. Yo, you have 2 choices to choose from. Estudio or bailo en la fiesta a las 8 de la mañana or a las 8 de la noche. So there are 2 things happening. You have to choose not only the correct verb, but a logical time, given the information in the activity. So we have the subject, yo. Which verb is logical to do at a party? That would be bailo. which means I dance. Now, the times. Now we have to select the correct time. What is a logical time for a party? 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night? The answer would be 8 o'clock at night. So if we have to select the most logical verb and the most logical time, and remember for the time, we're looking at grammar too with time, okay? Bailo y a las 8 de la noche sería la respuesta. That would be the answer. So this is assessing if you understand what your verbs mean. It's also assessing if you understand how to use time logically, okay? Here's another one. Yo ceno or canto en un restaurante con mi familia. So I do an action in a restaurant with my family. And then our two possible times. Well, ceno means I eat dinner. Y canto means I sing. So which one would you logically do with your family? Ceno. And at what time would you do that with your family? A las 7 de la noche or son las 7 de la noche. Pues, what is the difference between the time, current time and the time of an event or an activity from grammar lesson 1-4? Okay, so it's all coming together. The difference is we use son las or es la for the current time, and we use a la or a las for the time of an activity. Because this is in time of an activity, we will be using this option as the correct option, okay? So those two would be the two that you select. I hope that makes sense for you, okay? All right, final exercise, exercise 3. We're at the 20-minute mark. Please try to hang in there with me, okay? This one, I need you to really pay attention to what you're being asked to do, all of the little details. So it says, for each subject given or subjects given, write a sentence describing one activity the subjects do in a typical day and the time that the person or persons do the activity. So you're doing two things. You're talking about you're going to have to write about an activity and about a time. Use AI verb phrases from the bank given on the quiz. You will have a bank and the activities must come from that bank, okay? Remember, you're being graded on lesson 2-1 in your ebook, okay? All right, let's move on. We have a subject given. We have 3 possible activities. For each activity, the verb is in the infinitive. And when you create a sentence, remember that this verb must be conjugated to agree with whoever the subject is or subjects are. Okay, so if you had to create a sentence to describe what Marisa does on campus, you can use any one of these. I simply chose to use the first one. Okay, and when I do this sentence, I'm going to give a nice chunky phrase that's going to help to start making our language sound a little more flowy. Okay, durante un día normal. Durante un día normal. Practice saying that at home out loud. Durante un día normal. So on a normal day or during a normal day. Then we have our subject, Marisa. Now what does she do? Canta. And where? En la clase de música. So we're taking the subject, conjugating our verb, and adding the given details to create a sentence. All right, here's one more. Los estudiantes, el sujeto, the subject. Y la actividad, the activity. I would say los estudiantes hablan, taking off the AR, adding an AN, hablan con sus profesores, which means the students, they talk with their professors. Here's a visual, and remember to use this on the quiz. It will be part of your grade. Pause if you need more time. I'm going to move forward, okay? We're going to end today talking a little bit about Spain. We're going to talk about a very famous chef from Spain named Jose Andres. But first, we're actually going to describe what we see here on the screen, okay? Describe what we see here on the screen. Here's an example, okay? If I had to describe, I would use the formula subject-verb details to say, la estudiante trabaja en la cafetería. Notice, la estudiante is the subject. Trabaja is el verbo, and then our details. Your details are going to answer, where or how many or some detail, okay? Now, using that example, how would you describe this photo? You're going to use the subject. She's the subject with the yellow arrow. You're going to use a verb from that list of AR verbs from lesson 2-1 and then give some detail. Pause if you need more time. What I have come up with is la estudiante escucha al profesor. You may have put ella escucha al profesor or la chica. All of that is fine. Okay? Describe la foto. ¿Qué hacen las personas? What are the people doing? ¿Qué hacen? What are they doing? ¿Qué hacen? Well, subject, verb, details. Los estudiantes caminan, coming from the verb caminar, which means to walk, en la universidad or a las clases. You could have come up with something different. This is an example of a possible answer. Los estudiantes caminan en la universidad. The students, they walk on the university's campus is basically what you're saying. We're going to go through some more of these later. I do want to stop here and ask you to describe this picture. Pause if you need more time. The answer I came up with to check your response is here. Los estudiantes estudian en la biblioteca. Plural subject, plural ending, and then we have our details there in green. All right. These are some more. A copy of this PowerPoint is going to be in Moodle. You can try to test yourself and try to describe each one of these photos. Like I said earlier, we're going to end with a conversation about Jose Andres. He is a famous chef. He is from Spain. He currently lives in Washington, D.C. He is really, really known for combining like traditional Spanish food with more modern or innovative kitchen techniques. He was actually included in Time Magazine's list of 100 most famous or influential people in the world, and he's been on the program, The Top Chef. Now, all of these things are awesome, but that's really not why he is so famous. He's famous because of his humanitarian work, and you can see a little bit about that work using these clips here. I'm going to drop them in Moodle so you can see them in your free time. If you're an in-person student, you will see them in class. I'm doing the next class session, okay? He's a really influential reading the screen person, and very inspiring. I admire his work a lot. Now, for my in-person students, you can go on if you want to push forward. This is going to be a project that we work on in class together in groups, and you will be asked to do these things. Greet, discuss how you're feeling, discuss class schedules. You're going to ask from your compañero de clase or compañera de clase about the days and times of their class. We're going to find out who's teaching what and what they think of the class. Do they like it? Do they not? So we have a lot going on. If you're an online student and you just want to push the boundaries, you can create a monologue on these topics and email it to me. And I can give you some feedback. For my in-person students, go and start getting your thinking caps ready, okay? All right, so these are the topics of today that we've covered. I really hope you guys take a little time. I would highly suggest not just sitting back and watching, but taking a pen and paper and creating those responses. I'm not telling you that as like something that I just think you should do. It's something that's been proven in science to help with language acquisition, and it's something that I've seen firsthand helps with my students and their grades, okay? All right, it's been a long day for me. Voice is starting to crack. I hope you guys enjoyed this video breakdown. We're at about 30 minutes, and I hope it's helpful for the quiz. Adios. Adios.